Station Tillamook, of which Hangar B was a part. So, first of all, I would like to thank the Prince of Tillamook Air Museum for putting this event on and helping to save this historic Hangar B. 80 years old, can you believe it? 80 years old in 4 days, actually, to get technical about it. Well, thank you for visiting with us today. So Hangar B here is one of two hangars that were built during World War II to house airships that were used for anti-submarine patrol for Japanese submarines up and down the coast here. Now, each airship that was stationed in the hangar here is about 250 feet long and about 80 feet in diameter. Extremely large airships. So of course you couldn't house them outside because with as windy as it is here on the Oregon coast, they would literally blow away. So you needed to build a hangar large enough to house, at the minimum, 6 airships. Now the hangar had to be at least 1,000 feet wide, 1,000 feet long, 300 feet wide, and 200 feet tall. After Pearl Harbor, the Japanese submarine threat was out there. How best to deal with it? Well, we're going to build a fleet of airships to be able to spot these enemy submarines. You had the airship, and then you had the gondola, which was about the size of a school bus, and had large plexiglass windows for each blimp crew member to spot an enemy submarine. The problem is when they chose to build the base and build the hangar, it was about the worst possible time you could ever think to build anything. It was November of 1942, and if any of you are familiar with what the weather is like here on the coast in November, it is not exactly ideal for building. And of course you couldn't wait for nicer weather or you'd be waiting till the next August. So waiting was not an option, so they attempted to build the hangar and there was not enough local labor, let alone experienced labor. So the Navy actually advertised and attempted to recruit workers all the way back in the Midwest to try to get people to come out here to work on the hangars. In fact, they'd pay for your trip out here if you stayed on the job long enough, though. They didn't want anybody who just wanted a free trip out to the coast here. So you can imagine all these workers who knew what Oregon was, but had never been to Tillamook before, had no idea what the weather was like, what the climate was like, what the people were like. But there was a war going on. They wanted to do their duty for Uncle Sam, help defeat the Japanese. And so they came out here and they started building that November of 1942. And what happens? The sky opened up. It rained like mad. 15 inches of rain they had that month of November of 1942. Bulldozers were getting stuck in the mud. The workers all donned their wellies and trudging around through the mud. So foggy, you literally couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. They actually had to string telephone lines so workers on the hangar floor here could communicate with workers at the top of the hangar here. So you can imagine the workers standing around talking amongst themselves, going, is this like this all the time here? But we need to get the hangar built. We're going to work as hard as we possibly can. Talking amongst themselves, thinking, okay, this is one bad month. There's no way things are going to get any worse. But this is the Oregon coast in fall and winter, and it does get worse. So the next month, they actually got 16 inches of rain, an inch more than they had the previous month. And again, you can just imagine the workers standing around talking amongst themselves. Okay, that was 2 bad months of rain. Meanwhile, they've got a few wooden trusses here completed. It's not going to get any worse. Statistically, it can't get any worse. But of course it did get worse because this is the Oregon coast. In January of 1943, they got 17 inches of snow, which is just about unheard of to get that amount of snow here in any one month. It was the worst fall winter that we had in the previous 25 years, which just happened to coincide with when they built the hangar. But finally we had spring and then summer, and they were able to get one truss after the other up and completed. And Hangar B here was finally completed in August of 1943. A total of 9 months is what it took them, which is pretty miraculous given the conditions that they had to build this thing under. Now, as Gene mentioned, there's about 3 million board feet of lumber. That is about enough lumber to build 280 three-bedroom homes. That gives you an idea of the amount of natural resources expended for the war effort. And then, of course, we had 2 hangars out here. Hangar A that burned down in a tragic fire back in August of 1992. So finally the hangars were completed in August of 43. The blimps went out on patrol looking for Japanese submarines. Their patrol area was quite large, actually, compared to most other naval air stations that operated airships during the United States. So they would travel north, sometimes up into Canada to do air sea rescues, but mainly up north, almost up into Canada, around the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and then down south into Northern California, where there was a lot of overlap with some naval air stations down in that area. So the blimps performed a valuable service for us during the Second World War, looking for Japanese submarines on this coast, and then you had other air stations also operating blimps on the east coast and down south, looking for the German submarines, the U-boats. They had an amazing track record, which a lot of people don't realize. So airships watched over about 80,000 merchant ships and convoys during the Second World War, and not one merchant ship was ever lost to enemy attack after the airships were out there on patrol. The whole idea behind the airships was as a deterrent. So if you were an enemy submarine and you would submerge, and you knew an airship might be patrolling, you wouldn't want to surface because you wouldn't want an airship to be able to spot you, because they could call out air surface support to destroy you, to blow you out of the water. So it does not appear that there was any record of an engagement, a battle between an airship from the former Naval Air Station Tillamook and Japanese submarines. All the pertinent records have all been declassified now, but it could be that the Japanese submarines also knew that there was airships patrolling this whole area and just didn't even want to surface because they didn't want to deal with the airships. So each of the airships carried 4 350-pound depth bombs in which they could drop on an enemy submarine if need be. So the blimps performed an incredible duty during the war. But I also, having collected so many stories over the years of people who were stationed at Naval Air Station Tillamook, blimp pilots, blimp crew members, I like the lighthearted stories as well. Now, some of these stories don't ever appear on the official record, but they're things that really happened out here on the base. It shows the humanity of the people who were stationed out here. It shows kids being kids and immature boys being immature boys. So one such story told me by a blimp pilot, it would go like this. Let me grab a prop here. Okay, here I have what was called my Mae West life vest. This is from World War II. Now each blimp crew member was required to carry one of these Mae West life vests with them. For obvious reasons, you're traveling over water. So as you were heading out over the beaches, you'd put on your Mae West life vest, and you'd be out on patrol. And remember how old some of these boys were, 19, 20 years old. If you were 25, you were considered an old man. They'd go out over the beach, waving to kids, looking for Japanese submarines. But what else would they see down there? They'd see women that were sunbathing. And maybe they'd want to ask one of them out on a date. So what they would do, they'd yell down, but they're almost 200 feet in the air. You can't really hear you at all. So what they would do is they would take some tools from the airships, like these, They'd hastily write a note on there, say, hey, pretty lady, you want to go out on a date with me? Meet me at Connor's Bar tonight, 8 o'clock. Hey! Try to get their attention. Throw tools down to them. And maybe you didn't get their attention. Or maybe somebody else on the blimp saw somebody else who was pretty too. Hastily write their note on there. Hey! You down there! Throw more tools at them. These are things that actually happened during the war. And I often wonder, anybody ever get hit by a falling tool? And then when they got back to base, and the maintenance crew is going through the airships, taking inventories of everything, do you think did they wonder where all these tools went to? And when the blimp pilots were questioned, what did they say? That's a good story. Another good story was one airship pilot who almost could have, I think he thought he could probably fight the whole war himself, who was stationed out here in Naval Air Station Tillamook. He thought he saw a Japanese submarine, a Japanese periscope. And remember, you're about 200 feet in the air still. You needed to fly relatively low, but still high enough to be safe. He thought he saw a Japanese submarine, so they start stalking the submarine. They got their binoculars out, they're looking for this submarine, and he says he spotted it. He's sure he spotted it. They're flying around the coast here, looking for this elusive Japanese submarine. Where is the thing? So they decide, he says, I think I saw something. So they go over where they saw what this was. They drop 4 of those 350-pound death bombs. Boom, massive explosion, as you can imagine, underwater. What comes up? Blubber. They sunk a whale. Killed a whale, thinking it was a Japanese submarine. That guy wasn't stationed too long out here after that incident. Another interesting incident. Now again, these aren't things that were on the official record, but it shows the humanity of the people who were out here. Another incident happened. So the airships, they would all carry these big 75-pound bags of sand with them. And not to get too technical, but sometimes they would drop them overboard to help them get back into base here. Well, one blimp crew member wasn't exactly paying attention. You normally dropped them over the water or on the sand, and it wasn't a big deal. But they were over a field at the time, unfortunately. So he throws out this 75-pound bag of sand, and where does it land? It lands right on top of a cow. Kills the cow, unfortunately. The owner of the cow and the farm, he comes out to the base here, and he's screaming mad. And he claims to the base commander here that he needed milk from this specific cow because he was on a special diet, and he wanted compensated accordingly. Do you guys really believe he needed milk from this cow? I don't know. We don't know. He's long since passed away. So, the blimps out here performed a valuable service for our community and for our country. But they're human beings, and I love these stories. I love collecting these stories. And people love to hear these stories, I think, because this is who we all are as people and as a community. And that history is what this hangar is. And it's so important to preserve and protect this history. So let's all remember today, as we're looking around, reading about the history of the hangars and the aircraft here, that our grandparents left their mark on this hangar by leaving us with this historic structure. This is their legacy. Please help us so that we can make our mark and leave this hangar to our grandkids. So thank you all. Enjoy your time out here at the museum.